Hey there, and welcome to Crushing with Abby O. I'm your host, Abby O'Sullivan. This podcast is inspired by over 10 years in the beauty industry and the stories shared between a beauty professional and her clients. The type of girl talk that only happens behind closed doors or in the chair. Along with hilarious stories based on real life and the dating world, I'll be dishing out all of the secrets on self-care, health, and fitness. As a longtime lash extension artist turned health and fitness coach, I'm passionate about helping you view healthcare as self-care through nutrition, lifestyle, mindset, movement, stress management, and more. So grab a drink and a snack and come join me for a laugh. Welcome back, Crushers. Welcome back to another episode of Crushing with Abby O. Today's episode is a little spooky. We're going to be sharing first date horror stories in honor of Halloween coming up. I thought that this would be a perfect time to share some of the weird, awkward, annoying, frustrating first dates that I and others have been on. Here we go. Chapter 1. This is a personal story of mine. It is the first online date that I ever went on after my divorce. This was around, I believe, it was in December because we were doing Christmas parties. So it was just a couple of months after my divorce. And this is back in 2011. Yes, 2011. The site was Match.com. And let me just preface with the fact that I watched quite a bit of Millionaire Matchmaker with Patty Stanger back then. And when online dating was even proposed to me by the gals in the nail room that I used to work with and the clients, I was like, oh, people do that and we talk about it. So I get on Match.com, set up a profile, and I end up matching with this guy. We set up a time to meet at a nice restaurant here in town. And he actually lives in a town south of me. So I get there a little bit early and I settle in. He messages me. He's going to be late. All right. Okay. Cool. Patty Stinger's voice rings in my head about a man not being on time to the date. He shows up. He was Christmas shopping at the mall, by the way. And he makes a comment about this truck that's parked in front of the restaurant, which belongs to the owner of the restaurant. From what I can see, it's like a really nice truck. I don't know much about trucks, but this one looks really nice. He says he thought for a minute that it was his. Like, I guess it confused him to see this truck that's exactly like his, this special truck. And but he's like, of course it can't be mine because I drove the Porsche today. So obviously couldn't be his truck. Internal eye roll. Yes. Internal eye roll. So we order dinner, we chat. It's been a while, right? This is like 10 years. So it's been a while. I don't remember everything that we talked about, but I do remember that he was always trying to like show off. So the first bit was the truck. He talked about what he did, which was timeshare sales, and talked about his house. He also showed me his watch because apparently it was like rare and expensive and it can go underwater really deep. Like, I don't care about these things. So I was just like, ooh, okay, cool. And then Patty Stanger's voice rings in my head that all he does is brag about himself. All he does is talk about himself. Like, these are red flags because I watched so much Millionaire Matchmaker. I can literally hear her voice in my head. I'm not having the worst time, though. I don't really know what to think of this guy, and I'm not really sure what I was going to expect, being that it's my first date post-divorce. But I did have a friend's birthday party to go to later that night. He and his wife are buddies of mine and older and wiser than me. And so I asked him if it's okay to bring this date along, and he's down to go. So they're like, yeah, bring him. Seems kind of weird, right? Like bringing this stranger to your friend's birthday party. But I did get to ride in the Porsche. But first we have to stop at the mall because he forgot his phone in a dressing room. Like, whatever. So then we head across town to the party. We don't really get to go full speed or anything because there's a bunch of stop signs, but I'm not enjoying myself. And we head upstairs to where the party is, and the birthday boy notices the car immediately because he's a car guy, and he and my date immediately hit it off. They chat about cars, their mutual love for the college that they both went to, and my date regales him with tales from his college days and like awards or something. I don't remember, but like my friend is seems to be having a good time talking to him. I chat with my friends there, and eventually we leave. He drops me back off at my car, and I don't remember if we kissed or not, honestly. That weekend, just a couple of days later, I was at another friend's Christmas party, and he messages me to see what I was up to and asked if I wanted to get together within a couple of hours. He'd been down at the casino that's not too far from where we live. He'd been gambling. So I meet him at a restaurant. He was weird about where he parked his car because he had so much cash from his winnings in there. I mean, he was just like acting a tiny bit sketch that night. During our time at the restaurant, he asked me what I was doing in January and essentially invited me to go to Australia for the whole entire month with him and some people I didn't even know. And I was like, no, I can't. I have clients and work and a life here. And also, I don't fucking know you. Don't worry. By this time, I am also thinking this guy is totally full of himself, and I really questioned some of the things that he said because he was just a little too much. I ended up letting him come back to my place because I wanted to make out. It's okay. I know that you're shaking your head at me, but like, listen, it's post-divorce, right? But he got a call or message or something about his sister, and he had to bail pretty quickly. At this time in my life, I was in a networking group where I met a ton of people, including my birthday party friends and my Christmas party friends. Many of these people I still call friends to this day. And one guy in the group was a private investigator. And just hearing what I had from him, I went ahead and looked up my date on CaseNet, which is where you can see like court records here where I live. And I found a mix of extra relationship bits and speeding tickets. I think there was possibly another divorce that then he mentioned, speeding tickets, and I think some sort of domestic dispute. Like they got called. Cops got called on them for some reason. I also looked him up on the college that he said he went to. I looked him up on that website and I did not find him as a student, but I did find him at like a community college nearby. So yeah, I pretty much like Google searched, case netted his ass to see what I could find. And it really boiled down to a lot of tall tales and sort of misleading information. I never saw him again after that night. I don't think that I was impressed enough. But moral of this mystery man, I never really know who he really was. Listen when that inner voice says something isn't right. Case net your date if you need to. And stop bragging about yourself so much. No one cares about your fucking watch, okay? For the next chapter, we're going to hear from my friend Tracy and a few of her first date horror stories. They are pretty damn good too. So here is that conversation. Hey, Tracy.
Hi.
So you mentioned that you have at least one, maybe several awkward first date stories.
Yeah, there are several. I always have several stories, but yes.
I feel like same. I always have, there's not just one.
Right.
Well, I would love for you to share them.
Oh, perfect. Yes, because I used to do when I graduated college and I moved to DC for a year and then came back and it felt like I didn't know anyone. And so I started doing the online dating stuff. Was on a couple websites. I think Plenty of Fish was one of them. I don't know.
Oh, Lord.
I
I mean,
know,
I've been on
right?
all of them, but that one was a scary one too.
Right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
had no idea. I was so naive also, so
Oh,
that
same.
doesn't help.
Yeah. Well, and back then, like, well, I'm not saying back then, I don't know how long ago that was, but I know the last time I was on there and there weren't like there wasn't like the Bumble and there wasn't like Match was like maybe the most respectable and like eHarmony was the most respectable. And and you had to pay for most of that. So,
Yeah.
like, Plenty of Fish
I
was free.
exactly. It's exactly. It's like, "Oh, which one's oh, that one's free. All right,
Okay,
cool."
cool. So that means we get, yes, it's literally like
Uh,
going fishing.
Yes.
You
Oh
never
my
know what you're gonna
gosh.
get.
Right. Often have to throw them back. Too small
Catch and
or whatever,
release. Yeah,
So
too small, too catfishy. I don't know.
oh my gosh. So this once, he was a lawyer and he reached out and I was like, oh yeah. And the job I was working at was a good job, but it was only part-time. He was a lawyer and I was like, well, that's cool. It'd be an interesting job, not a job I would want, but okay. We went on a first date and we met at a bar. And when I walked up, he like looked me up and down and I was like, oh
Oh,
gosh, okay. I know it was already awkward. And he goes,
thank you.
I guess that's an he goes, I guess that's an okay outfit.
Wow.
I know. So I was instantly just kind of put off.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, well, and also my fashion sense isn't the best, but I mean, I did try really hard because it was a date. It was a first date. So I tried really hard. So I thought I was fine, honestly.
Mhm.
Especially for, the bar we went to. It wasn't like a fancy place.
Mhm.
Anyway, we get in there and I'm looking at the beer menu and they had a huge beer menu. It was great. There were so many options and I was glancing through and he's like, oh, are you going to get a beer? And I was like, yeah, I think a beer would be good. And he goes, well, I'll order it for you.
Okay.
I
All
know. And I
right.
was like,
Sounds controlling.
oh, I know. And I was like, okay. Okay. I said, well, do you want me to tell you what kind of beers I like? And he goes, no, no, I know.
The fuck is this
And
guy?
I know. And then let me say, we didn't chat much online before we met
Okay.
in person
Mm-hmm.
for a date. So I was like, oh, he didn't know anything about me. I don't know what he's thinking, but sure, give it a shot, buddy. Whatever. And so he orders, and I don't even remember what kind of beer it was. And the waitress brought it out, and I tried it. And he goes, well, what do you think of your beer? And I was like, it's all right. It's not what I would have ordered. It's
Yeah.
fine though. I like all beers mostly, so it's fine. And so I drank a little bit of it. I mean, a couple sips, and he reaches over and takes it and takes a drink of it. Doesn't
Ew.
ask, just I know. And I was like,
Like, what are you, a child or
I
something? Like, that's so weird.
know. So he takes a drink of it, and then instead of putting it back in front of me, he puts it in front of him next to his beer. I know. I was really perplexed, and I was just like, what's going on? And I was like, so you're just gonna keep my beer like that? Because I was like, maybe he's nervous. He didn't seem it, but maybe he's nervous and he just, sets it back down in front of him. And he goes, well, I think you've had enough.
Oh,
I said, okay,
okay.
so you order my beer. I've had a few drinks. It's not even half. It's not even halfway gone. And then you take my beer. And I was like, well, okay. And then I let him talk. And then he had to go pee. So I was like, yeah, you go. And so I called the waitress over. I was like, can I get one of these beers? And I said, I would like to pay for it right now also.
Yeah,
I gave her
good
my
for
card.
you.
I gave her
I
my
love
card.
it.
I know. And so when he comes back, she brings this beer in like the little slip to sign. And he's like, what the
I
fuck did you just do?
Yeah, I bet he was like, ugh,
He was
offended.
he was so offended. I was like, well, I ordered and paid for my own beer so that I can drink my own beer. I know. I know. And he kept talking. It was, and I love to talk, but he mostly talked the whole time. I know. I know.
It's so funny
So
because I literally
ridiculous.
have like, well, I've been on dates with 3 different lawyers, and the last two, especially the last one, I was like, never again, never another lawyer ever.
Right? Oh my gosh. I know. Let me tell you, this
So
guy
this is
like set
perfect.
the bar super low for lawyers for me too. I was like, yeah, I know. Well, and then we had some appetizers and finished our drinks, and then he was like, "Well, I think this date's over," and I was like, oh yeah, it's definitely over." And he's like, "So you coming back to my place?" And I was like, "What? Oh,
What?
that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant." And he goes, "Oh." He goes, "Well, I don't want to go anywhere else." And I was like, "Yeah, me neither.
Yeah,
Bye.
that
See you
meant
later."
like we were parting ways. What in the hell gave that man a sense that you wanted to go home with him?
I don't even know. But he also made it sound like it was like a favor for me, oh, you're
Oh,
coming over.
my
So, and I
Lord.
was like, "Man, no, no, no."
And listeners, we live in the same town, so you can bet your ass I'm going to ask what this guy's name was after.
No
I
names,
know,
no
I'm like,
names on
it's
the
probably the same.
podcast, but I mean, maybe we've been on the same. Nah, you know what? Maybe probably not. But I would just say the level of arrogance is astounding.
Right? Oh my gosh, he did. He made it sound like he's like, I'm a lawyer, I make all this money, and what,
Blech.
you're only working part-time? And I was like, yeah, but that doesn't mean I don't make money. It's
Yeah.
still,
Wow.
yeah, ridiculous.
That's a great, terrible first date. Wow.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
so tell me your Christmas lights one again. She told me
Oh,
this story before I was recording, and I was like, "Oh, this is good."
oh my gosh. There's even a little bit at
Terrible.
the beginning, so I'll
Oh
talk
yeah,
about the
let's dive
beginning part.
in.
Oh my gosh, so dumb. Like, how do I? And it seemed like I kept getting into the same type of guys. And I'm like, why are you
Mm-hmm.
so full of yourself? Maybe it's like the confidence. And I'm like, oh yeah, this sounds like a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So I was interacting with this guy online, and he sounded super nice. He was going to be a children's doctor.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, so he's smart, he's intelligent, he's going to make a lot of money, so he can hold his own. I know, not that I was going to be like a mooch, but I want them to be able to not mooch off me
but I'm
also.
but I'm laughing because I also know what happened. So I'm like,
I know.
wow.
I know, right? It makes it so much worse. I know.
Yeah.
So I pull up, and this was so long ago. I was driving my truck still. So I didn't have my car. I was driving, it's a little Toyota four-wheel drive. It sits up kind of high. I mean, I'm from Ava, so I mean it
Mm-hmm.
looks like an Ava truck. But it's a truck. So, and back in those times, I did take it out mudding
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. So when I pulled up, we met at Andy's. I pulled up, and he gets out, and he's like, nice to meet you. And he's like, oh my God, why is your truck so dirty?
Oh.
And I was like, well, I took it on some back roads over the weekend and met up with some friends from a long time ago. But the inside is not dirty, it's just the outside.
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh, he seemed so disgusted.
He was
And
judging.
I know, but yet when we got our Andes, he wanted to sit on the tailgate of my truck because he thought that was so cool. Okay. And I know. And here I'm freezing my ass off because it's winter time. I mean, it's Christmas. And
He
so we're
wants to
eating
sit
Andy,
on the
and I'm
fucking
I
tailgate
know.
with
And so
ice
I'm just
cream.
like, I know. So I'm like, I'm in my coat, and and I was like, I can't, I'm gonna have to get some heat. I do not like being cold. I get cranky about it. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
can we sit in a car, your car, my car? I don't care. And he's like, well, let's go ahead and sit in your car. It's like, perfect, whatever. I don't care. My heater's amazing. So let's do that.
Yeah.
And then he wanted to drive around and look at Christmas lights. And I was like, well, that's cute. I love doing that kind of crap.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, why don't you go ahead and drive? That's fine. I don't mind driving. I kind of appreciated that he was not going to be one of those guys like, oh, a woman driver. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, okay, this is great. So we get to these neighborhoods, and every time I stop at a stop sign, he reached over and grabbed my boob.
Like,
And the first time it
motherfucker.
happened, I just
Like, what
stared
the
at him.
fuck?
Just stared at him. I was like, what are you doing? Because I don't know. I couldn't even register what had happened even. And he's like, oh, well, sorry, keep going or whatever. And I was like,
Uh, like,
okay,
motherfucker, that's like, that's
yeah,
assault. Like,
yeah.
don't touch my
And then,
body.
right? And then the worst part is, back in the day, of course, I'm always so self-conscious. I'm like, did I do something? Like, did I
Mm-hmm.
did I be like, oh, here's my boob? Like I was like, what?
Was it hanging out for everyone to
I
see? Like,
I thought,
did I
yeah.
invite that subconsciously?
Driving, and I drive a standard too, so my arm was kind of in the way. So I was like, he
Yeah.
really had to try for that. And I was like, whatever. One time I gave him a look, and I was like confused. So I was like, okay. Come to the next stoplight or the stop sign, and he did it again. And I was like, okay, what are you doing, man? And he's just like, well, what are you gonna do about it? And I was like, stop it. You stop it right now. and kept driving through the neighborhood, came to the next stop sign, and I was waiting. I was like, if he does it one more time, I swear. And he did, and I smacked his hand. I was like, all right, we're done with that. We're done. I was like, I don't know why you think you could do that. We're done. And he was just like, oh, well, come on. What are you going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I can either take you back to your car now or I'll leave you right here. It was just like, oh. I was like, yeah, that's what I can do. That's what do you want to be out here in the middle of a neighborhood in North Springfield and with, in winter. And he was just like, oh, I guess take me back to my car then.
Ugh. Ugh. And he was going to be a children's doctor.
Yes. I've thought about that so often. I'm
so
like,
inappropriate.
Right. Yeah.
Nah,
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you like said something though, and then we're like very like, you can get the fuck out now, or I can actually drive you back to your car, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then when we got there, he was just
The
kind of like,
balls.
well, I guess I should have known by your truck. And I was like, should have known
What
what?
the fuck does that mean? Maybe you should just
know.
know that you don't just grab your girl's boobs like randomly just because you're in the car with them. Who the fuck raised you like that? No one, probably.
No.
I'm not going to talk shit on his parents. I don't know them. That's kind of mean. But like, seriously. That's
yeah,
crazy.
it was so weird. It was so weird. I was like, what? Just what?
And this is about the time that we're like, fuck plenty of fish, fuck dating.
I had one more time. And then I was like, nope, done.
Yeah.
I had someone lie to me about their height, which I don't care. I really don't.
Right. Yeah.
But I was like, okay, I always kind of take notice. Okay, he's taller than me. Was shorter than me. And I'm not tall. So
yeah. I've had the same thing happen. Like they say like 5'6". I mean,
yeah.
I'm not laughing. Sorry, my nose is running, everyone. I'm not laughing at like height. Like you can't help that, but just be truthful about it. Cause I'm 5'4". So if I walk up and you're literally the same height, like there's just no reason to be deceitful or like lie about it. Just be truthful. Just be who you are and accept that. Like it's going to be okay. But yeah, it's like, it's not like I'm not gonna be able to tell in person because I know how tall I am. So that's not 5'6".
I'm 5'3" and a quarter. And so, yeah.
Well, actually, I think I'm probably 5'3" and 3/4 too. Because I was like, we're like the same height. So 5'4" and 5'3" and 3/4 isn't really that much of a difference. And I'm like, wait, you're not shorter than me.
Yeah, but you definitely notice when they're shorter than you when they show up, or your same height. Yeah. It's like, do you think that I wouldn't?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you have?
I had this one guy. I had the short guy, and when I met him, and I was just like, oh, it didn't bother me, but it was just, it's kind of interesting if that's what they lie about. It makes you think, oh, what else have they lied about?
Well, yeah, I showed up one time and I realized that the person had not put their height on their profile and I just missed it. But even in the pictures looked, I don't know, like taller, I guess. But he was around my height and that's fine. It just was like when I walked in and met him, I was flustered actually, to the point that didn't know what to say for a couple of seconds because I was like, oh, for some reason I thought he was gonna be taller. And I don't know, I was flustered from my drive over anyway. I think I almost like hit some bikers or something because they were doing like I didn't almost hit them, but I had to I literally went an extra block down because I didn't know how to turn they were like, there was a bunch of them doing like a ride and they were in the bike lane, but I was like, I don't know how to get into the right lane with all of them there. And so I just went like an extra block down that I didn't took a complete long way to get to this restaurant. And so when I showed up, I was flustered anyway. And then he stood up and I was like, oh, he's like, okay, that's fine. Like we can do this. And then one of my clients was literally sitting at the next table over and we are both single, like always talking about dates and stuff. And so I'm like, oh, hey, knowing we're both kind of laughing inside about the fact that she gets to listen in on my first date with this person. And then we're going to talk about it probably later. She's at dinner with her mom. And I was like, oh, this is great. I love this town. I love seeing people everywhere I go that I know. But yeah, we actually ended up going on like a handful of dates. So I mean, he was a nice guy, but yeah, it was just took me back a little bit to, so just, be who you are. That's the moral of the
Yeah.
story.
That's right.
And
That's
and even
right.
if you're an arrogant prick lawyer, like that's cool. Just you'll find somebody who likes that one day, I'm sure.
Maybe.
Oh my
God.
gosh.
Oh, and that short guy though, like he seemed so nice and he held the doors open for me. And I was like, oh, how sweet. He's very polite. And we sat down for our dinner and then it all just like crumbled from there. So he was super nice to the waitress too. And I always appreciate that. But he was like, oh, make sure you bring us extra napkins because Tracy is so messy and drops
Well,
food. This is
what?
our first date.
Is that a
So
prank that you play on someone?
I don't think so because we went out for ice cream after that. And the guy behind the counter was like, do you want one scoop, two scoops? And he's like, you better give her just one scoop because she's going to drop that second scoop right on the floor because that's what Tracy does.
That is
I
kind
was
of
like,
an
isn't
odd.
it weird? But then
That's
he dropped his. He got two. I got one. I was like, fine, whatever. I'll get one. Because now I feel like you've cursed me. So I'll get one scoop. He got two scoop and dropped that motherfucker right on the floor. And I was like, "Wah!" And I laughed
That's
so
what
hard.
you
And the guy
get.
behind the counter was laughing and pointing. And I was like, I can't. And so I just walked out. I just walked out of the store. Just walked out with my ice cream. Just left him there. Like, oh my
Good
gosh.
for
I
you.
know.
I am the worst about like not leaving when I should. Like I'm too nice. I had an ice cream story. Also, this reminded me. I was living in Arizona and I actually had a fucking root canal that day. So why I thought I needed to go out with anyone that night. And I
Oh
was feeling
gosh.
okay. I was just really tired, like I'd been laying around all day. I think I'd had some sort of soft food. Yeah, I think I went to like one of the pasta places and or had it delivered, or I think I probably walked over there actually because I lived in a like restaurant heavy, shopping heavy area. And this guy and I had been chatting and he was getting ready to go on vacation for an extended amount of time, like I don't know, like over the weekend or 7 days or something, where I was like, well, I'd rather meet you before instead of talking for like another week. And, like, let's just get this over with. And so I invite him to meet me in my neighborhood for ice cream at my favorite little place that had really good chocolate chip mint. And they also did like crepes and stuff. But anyway, I'm just not really feeling totally myself, but I put myself together, like dumb idea. Just I put myself together and I wander down there. And this guy doesn't know how to get there. And I don't really know the directions. And I'm just not in the mood to try to get them. I'm like, okay, do you see the gap? Okay, like turn away from that. It's down that street. And he was like confused. And I was like, I don't fucking know which
Oh.
direction. Like, I just like whatever, dude, just put it on your GPS. I don't know. Here's the name of it. I'm just standing there waiting for him. And he finally shows up and he's giving me shit about it. And I was just like, I just don't have the patience for this. I had a root canal today. Like, I felt kind of emotional. I was just like, I don't need any shit because you don't know how to fucking walk around and look for an ice cream store. Like, dude, it's not that big of a,
Yeah.
he's like, just giving me so much shit. And he
Mm.
also was very disheveled looking. Like he definitely needed a haircut, but his hair was kind of dirt. Like he had said, like, pardon my, like appearance or whatever, but his eyes were a little bloodshot. Like he looked like he hadn't showered for a couple of days. He looked like he possibly was drunk or something. I don't really know. He wasn't really acting very nice either. So I was just like, wow, this guy, I mean, I had a root canal and I think I'm doing okay. Like, what's your fucking excuse? And we go into the ice cream shop and I only get one scoop because that's all I need. But he goes, I came all the way down here and you're just going to get one scoop. And I was like, wow, like we're the only people in there. The person that's waiting on us is literally right there. And I was like, wow, that's kind of shitty. Like, I don't think you need to give me shit about this. And we get our ice cream and we walk around and it's a very pretty like shopping area. So, and we walk and we walk and we walk and I get to hear about his divorce and blah, blah, blah. And then finally I'm like, I gotta go. I'm tired. And I think I let him walk me to the back door of my building or whatever. And I didn't talk to him again. It was just, he just was like immediately I was very on guard with him giving me shit about directions. And then he said that shit about the ice cream in the store. And I was just like, that you're awful. Like, this is terrible. But yet I'm gonna go ahead and walk around and eat my ice cream with you.
Oh, I know. It
know.
is so
Thank
hard
God
to
I'd
get
had a root
away.
canal that day. I was just like, I gotta go. I'm tired. I should have been like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going back home. I don't fucking want any ice cream now. Like, I hate you. I was not in the mood. I was not in the mood. It was just so childish.
It is like getting ice cream should be such a happy, fun thing, and it shouldn't matter what ice cream or how many scoops. Like,
yeah, like why are
just
you
enjoy the ice cream?
So in control of like my consumption of ice cream. Jeez.
Gosh. So you just take your scoop and then throw in the trash, be like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah. You know what? You want 3 scoops? You get 3 scoops. I just want one. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Tracy's going to drop hers all over the ground. I'm going to remember that and just say that to you super randomly. Like, oh, don't fill that cup up too much because she makes a mess. Like, that's a really weird
It's so weird.
Almost like Halloween-y serial killer stuff or something. I don't know.
I know. Right? Well, I mean,
creepy.
Yeah. Lies about his height. Yeah. Makes up stories about his date. I mean,
yeah.
Not that I'm not messy, honestly.
Yeah, but he didn't know that. And there's
that.
like, who says that? Like, we need some extra napkins because she's really messy. Like, what the hell?
And let me tell you, I've never dropped my ice cream because I would like ninja that shit and catch it with my bare hand if I needed to. Because it's ice cream.
I'm not trying to let my ice cream go to waste.
No, exactly. But the guy at the counter was like making such faces at him the whole time. And then when he dropped his, like, we just lost it.
Because he could tell he was a douche.
Yeah. I was like, oh, take that, instant karma. Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh geez.
Good times.
I tell you. I know. This could be like a whole book of terrible first dates.
I agree. Well, we should do a round 2 then. It'll be
I think those were my best ones though, I think.
Well, if you think of any more, don't worry. I'm happy to listen to them. I have a few too. So, but thank you so much for sharing your amazing, awful tales from first dates. That's the only scary music I know, guys. So
that's pretty good though.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Okay, so I totally love dishing about someone else's bad first dates other than my own for once. So that was great. And now I've got a couple of comments from the Facebook post that I made about sharing your bad first date stories. And this one comes from a friend where she says, I have one where a guy told me he got beat up while on drugs and they stole his wallet because he was racist and then didn't understand why I didn't want a second date. Yeah, can imagine. Another date, I got so badly catfished, the bartender could tell and started buying me shots because he felt so bad for me. And the whole bar was talking about it when he went to the bathroom. Like, that's a sad moment when everyone knows, everyone else knows, and then you're also getting shots bought for you. And then she says the night that she met her now husband, he tried to make a move and she told him, you can handle me. Well, apparently he can, girl, because he got you now. Okay, the last 2 chapters here are personal stories of mine, and they involve 2 lawyers. So I've been on dates with 3 lawyers in my life, and I'm done. I have to say that I am done going on dates with lawyers. So the second lawyer that I ever went out with, I was living in Arizona, and I matched with this guy on Bumble. We set up a date pretty quick, and he called me on his way there. He'd gotten an Uber. I had driven and parked down the street in Old Town and just walked a little ways to the restaurant. And right off the bat, I was like, I don't know about this guy. He was argumentative, had to be right. He was showing off. And from, my previous story, I'm not really much for showing off. So the food, the ambience, the wine, let's capitalize wine, was really good. And somewhere between that first and second glass of red wine, he made a comment, and I retorted in some sort of sassy manner that got him. Like, I got him, and he noticed, and he liked it. And I think I kind of liked it. I was like, oh, I got him. Did I like him? Do I like him now? I don't know. I went to the bathroom. I realized I was feeling a little warm and fuzzy from the wine. And I was thinking, like, am I really going to continue on this date with him? Or are we really going somewhere else? And I don't know. I guess I just wasn't feeling too awful about it. Wasn't that scary? Not yet. So we moved on to the next place, got a drink, found a seat, and even ran into a random Italian friend of his. We were sitting on the same side of the booth, and his arm was around me, and he was talking about travel, and he was introducing me warmly to his friend, and I was drunk. Then we end up at a hotel, like a rooftop club bar. He has plenty of other friends, of various international friends there. He buys me a glass of champagne, even though I don't fucking need it at all. And I recognize this, and I end up just carrying it around. I felt really out of place, but I was also drunk. So I didn't know his friends. I didn't really feel that comfortable in the atmosphere. And pretty quickly, we Ubered to his place, and we got naked, and we had some sex. Some point during the sex, I get mad. So mad that I get up and I start getting dressed as he pleads with me to stay. I'm too drunk still, too drunk. And I'm reasoning this in my head as I'm trying to get dressed. Like, are you really going to get a fucking Uber at 3:00 in the morning? Like, you don't even know how to get out of this apartment building. And he's sitting on the side of his bed with my hands in his, pleading with me to stay. Like, we're in some kind of relationship. I give in. I lay down, fully clothed, with my necklace and everything on, at the edge of the bed, like facing away from him, and I'm just mad. I'm curled up, barely able to sleep. I fall asleep for like a few hours, maybe. And in the morning, he's trying to get me to have sex again, which, like, fuck no. My stomach, my body, my brain, all screaming no. Like, I feel sick. I just want to go home and shower everything off of me. And I'm like, stop. And he takes it personally. He's like, oh, you were so into it last night. I'm like, yeah, well, I was pretty drunk. He's like, is that the only reason you had sex with me? I'm like, well, the answer is yes. But I say no. It's like role reversal at its finest. But he wants to get brunch, and I say no. I need to go shower. I need to eat, lay down, grocery shop, whatever. I have a work trip later that week. So I'm just like, I need to go. I need some space. This is like too much for me. His arms are wrapped around me in bed, and he's like, yeah, but we could just spend more time together. Like, you'll have space on your trip, and I'll be gone too. So let's just go have brunch. And again, I'm like, no. And I finally get up and I start to leave, and there's more of this back and forth. Like, why am I arguing with this guy about all of this? We just fucking met like 12 hours ago. And I say, I just don't think I can give you what you want. I ask for directions for this giant apartment building to get out of there, and he lets me leave. And of course, it's a really fun Uber ride to my car. Walk of shame, ride of shame. That's what it's called, right? Ride of shame in the morning, where I discover a big food delivery truck is blocking my car. And I'm literally just like, fuck. So I call my friend who is 2 hours ahead of me, and I tell her about the stage 5 clinger that I just barely escaped, and that I essentially had to break up with to get out of his apartment. Later that day, he texts me while I'm at Walmart to let me know that he doesn't think we want the same things or some shit like that. And I'm like, yeah, totally, totally fucking agree. It's just really nice of him to text me, whatever. But here's the kicker, guys. I was so stupid drunk that it took me 2 days. It took me 2 mornings to remember why I was mad at him. I knew why at the time, but I had apparently forgotten in the 2 hours of sleep that I got. And it was because the condom was dry. It didn't feel good at all. It had dried out and it was rubbing me raw, you know? That's basically like a horror story all in of itself, is a dry fucking condom. Ugh. And I told him to get a new one, but he didn't. So I basically pushed him off of me, pissed and ready to go because he wasn't listening to me, which I don't feel one fucking bit bad about. Like, he should have been listening to me. That is one of the biggest fucking pet peeves. Like, just listen to the girl. Just because you think it feels good does not mean it feels good for her. Okay, moral of this stage 5 clinger horror date story is leave when you realize you don't fucking like the person. Don't get fucking wasted, and always listen to your partner when they say something doesn't feel good. Also, use your voice and just tell somebody that you don't like them. I should have just been like, yeah, I was drunk, and that's pretty much it. Now I would like to leave. I don't actually want to see you again. This is too much. Okay. All right. Final horror story. I wish that I had titles for these. Like, what would this one be? What would this one be? The Terrible Tale of the Threesome. That's pretty good, right? All right. Okay. So that's just off the cuff. All right. This guy, y'all. First, I will admit that I did match with him once before all of this, like a year or so before all of the 2 years, probably before this. And I was turned off by him then because he was like always name dropping. I never went out with him. I didn't even talk to him that long. And a couple of years later, I get a friend request from him. And seeing that we have a mutual networking group friends in common, I accept. He looks professional and whatnot. I'm like, okay, cool. Then I see him on Bumble and I match with him. I guess I thought that I would give him a shot. He tells me that he saw me a year before at a restaurant reading a book and was distracted by me from his date. I'm like, where the fuck was I reading at a restaurant? I just eat at restaurants. I don't usually take a book when I'm by myself. And he said it was at a Starbucks. And then I remember the day because it was a beautiful day out. I had worked out and then I'd gone to the Starbucks to read for a little bit. I guess I do that so little that I remembered the actual day. And I do remember a guy and a girl, and I think he had the dog maybe at the next table over, but I had my back to them. I was not interested in watching their date. I don't remember thinking that he was attractive and he was wearing like some sort of tank top, and I don't know, it just wasn't attractive. Anyway, there was another guy reading at the table on the other side of me. I was kind of facing him, and he actually stopped me when I was leaving to ask what I was reading. And then I went to the bathroom, and I remember thinking in the bathroom, that was probably a meet cute, Abby, and you totally just like missed that and left. But I went ahead and left anyway. I wasn't going back out there to get his number or anything. So this lawyer remembers me from all this time ago. And I'm like, why didn't you just say something on Facebook? Like, we're friends on Facebook. So the conversation gets moved over to Facebook. And we talk about he's just gone off on his own business-wise, and I'm very interested in that. So I ask him some questions. And then it gets moved into more personal stuff. Oh, he starts talking about how he wants to be a divorce attorney. He wants to be the best divorce attorney in town, which made me cringe inside a little bit because I've been divorced and I know people have been divorced, and it's not always pleasant. It sometimes can be very disruptive and heartbreaking for people. So I actually just cringed at that comment. Like, it felt cringy. So I'm like, that's cool. Good for you. Having been through that, it's not something that I would really want to be involved with, but okay. And he asks me if I had any kids from that. And I was like, no. And I think I asked, like, how about you? And he says, well, actually, I have 2 kids. And I was like, huh, because he's probably 6 or 7 years younger than me. And I was like, huh. Not noticing anything on his Facebook page. He doesn't say anything about them really anywhere on his profile on Bumble. And I say from the same or two different baby mamas. And he goes from two different women in the same night. I'll let you make the inference. And I was like, I'm sorry. What the fuck? What? And I'm like, you're not for real. I was like, damn, dude, getting around. This is a threesome? Really? You had 2 babies from one threesome? And I was like, are people not afraid of anything other than babies? Like, you all really had unprotected sex with each other and no one's worried about anything but babies. Oh, but he supposedly had a vasectomy in his early 20s, but he never did go back to the doctor to check and make sure everything was not working properly. And I'm just like, ugh. So he starts going on and on about his kids and how he just, gets them every other weekend. He tries to be the best that he can. And it took him a while to like warm up to them. And all this is very nice and whatever. And he only seems to be sending me a picture of one child, a young child. So I'm not really sure where the other child is, but I'm seeing a picture of one. And I'm honestly not really into this, but I'm like, okay, cute. Then he's kind of asking me out. I like last minute and I'm like, no, I can't do that. And then I say, how about this day? And he says, yeah, he picks the place. Guys, why am I going on this date? Like, I'm not even, but here's the deal. Like, I had to find out more about this story. I had a lot of fucking questions. So I've got to meet this guy so I can ask the fucking questions about this fucking threesome. So I'm telling some of my clients about this. And they're like, no. I just let people draw the conclusion, right? They're just like, no, what? He's just saying that to show off, or like, that's fucking weird. And I'm like, yeah, it's a little unbelievable. Like, did you finish in both girls or did you drag from one to the other and like everyone was okay with this? Like, I mean, no judgment, no shame. I'm one for protection. So I guess I'm just finding it kind of hard to believe that this would happen. It also seems really coincidental that you'd be able to get both of them pregnant. Anyway, my last client of the day is listening to me tell the story and she's like, I don't know about this. And I'm like, well, I'm really supposed to go meet him like right now. I say something about him having played music or whatever. And she's like, where did he go to school? And I end up pulling up his Facebook profile and she messages her son, who also went to the same school. They were in class together, in music class or whatever together. And her son has nothing nice to say about this guy. He's like, tell her to run. And I'm like, I'm kind of already committed. Like, I gotta go. I gotta find out more about this whole threesome thing. So I go. And it's very sunny on the patio, and it takes them a few minutes to get us an umbrella. And he's wearing his lawyer suit and he's sweating. So just, let's the visual of sweaty man here, sweating through that motherfucking suit, sweating through it. It's just warm enough outside. And we eat, and I ask him more about this whole threesome thing. And there's really not much more to it than that. Like, I don't know if he was like thought that was going to be hot, that he got 2 girls at once and got them pregnant, or like what. I was like, so basically you get to tell people the story like every date that you go on. And he's like, yeah, and eventually someone will accept me. And I'm like, yeah, right on, like for sure someone will accept that. He talked about his practice a bit, and there were some things that he said that I felt it was a little inappropriate. Number one, I guess it wasn't necessarily personal client information or anything, like no names or anything like that, but just like circumstances. And I am a child of divorce, and I did have a dad that would come in on the weekends or whatever, and we would go hang out. And there was just something about the way he was talking that made me feel like it was just sort of triggering. And I was just like, dude, I don't really actually love this conversation. I don't think you understand. I don't know if you quite understand the implications of all of this, and the fact that he seemed a little bit like being the weekend dad was, super okay for him. And I don't know, everything was just very off here. I'm not trying to judge or anything like that. It's kind of hard not to, but like try not to judge, honestly. And at the same time, I'm like, this is not like, there's nothing about you that I find attractive, like here, like character, personality, like nothing. Aside from all the name dropping, and listen, like, I don't give a fuck who you know here. It's not that important. Like, I'm not going to know them anyways. So it's not going to register to me how important you are because you know this person. And we also talked about, being that I'm in the fitness industry, we talked about that too. And for him, like, what could he do and all of this stuff. And I was like, of course I'm going to give you some advice, but only so much. And luckily, the person that I shared a lash space with at the time needed me to come back to the studio. And so I was like, I got to go. Dinner was over, and a very awkward, sweaty hug later. I was on my way just going like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck did I just fucking sit through? And I'm laughing. I'm just laughing like like how crazy, how weird, how outrageous can this get? Like, why? So needless to say that I did not want to go on another date with him. He did end up asking me, and he did send me a shirtless photo of himself that was an obvious screenshot from Snapchat. So I took the picture in Snapchat, maybe sent it to somebody else, but screenshot it and instead of just saving it to the camera roll, and sent it to me. A little bit leaner than this is the goal, I believe is what he said. And I don't know if I was supposed to comment on his body and give him some compliments like, hey, howdy, like whatever. But I was totally in trainer mode, and I was like, yeah, tighten up that nutrition and you'll be good to go. Just wasn't playing with that one. All right. So I hope that this story of the terrible tale of the threesome doesn't haunt you like it has me. I hope that you're able to sleep tonight knowing that people have acted like this on a first date, including myself. Now, actually, as a bonus, I would like to share the tale of an almost first date that was legit pretty creepy. I was talking to this guy. This was when I lived in Nashville, and I was talking to this guy for about 48 hours when this all went down. We were just messaging on Bumble, seemed to have a good rapport. I did have another date to meet in the middle of that week. This guy, this the good rapport guy, creepy guy, we were going to meet that Friday. So Wednesday, I have a date with someone else, and I'm getting gas, and I'm trying to like wrap up my conversation with creepy guy so that I can go on this date, right? And he's like gonna hang out with his guys, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go have dinner with a friend. And he was like, oh, a friend? What's this friend's name? And I was like, Ashley. Yeah, I totally fucking lied, and I said it was my girlfriend, Ashley. I really did have a friend named Ashley in Nashville, and I told her the next day that she was my alibi. Anyway, and he was like very suspicious. I mean, okay, fine, whatever, but like there's no reason for him to be. We haven't even met yet. So I go hang out and have a nice little time with this person, just lots of conversation. And I end up driving him back to his apartment just down the street. I didn't want him walking along 8th Street at night. I was just like, it's too busy. It's too dark. Let me just take you back down the street. And I am sitting in my car, pulling away. And I have a message from a creepy guy. It's a fucking video. And this is literally the only, well, I won't say the only, this is one of the few times that I have shared my personal dating life on the internets, on Facebook, for people to see and hear and witness, because it was so creepy. But I laughed so hard all the way home about this. I was like, who the fuck does this guy think he is? Who the fuck does he think he is? I mean, I was literally laughing so hard. Let me play this video for you.
Well, the date you're on tonight must be pretty freaking hot. I never got my Well, how you doing text. Shameful. Shameful. Oh, well, I hope you get a nice goodnight kiss from her. Him. Whoever it is.
So that's the video that he sent me. It's a video of him talking into the camera and saying that. And it played over the Bluetooth in my car, and I seriously just bust out laughing. Like, who the fuck does this guy think he is? Laughed all the way home, sent it to all of my friends the next day. Like, we literally had been talking 48 hours or less, and this guy was acting like this because I didn't send him a "hey, how you doing" text. And I told my friend Ashley the next morning that I was like, "Hey girl, we had dinner and then this is what happened." And she was like, "He looks like a dang angry bird." So I put this shit on Facebook because I was like, this is not cool. And it was funny because he was definitely being extremely dramatic about it. And I really didn't have anything to say to this guy, and I should have, probably been a lot stronger in my reaction. But I was like, that was a little dramatic. And he goes, "Yeah, that's the whole point." I don't fucking know what that even means, but I obviously blocked and deleted and whatever. My business partner at the time says, who's a man about my age, and he says, "Well, you never know, like maybe you should still go on the date with him and like, maybe it was just, a joke." And I was like, "No, I think this is a fucking red flag and I might end up in an alley dead or in his basement or something. So no, thank you." And he was like, "Yeah, you're probably right. That's probably a good call." Ugh, my gosh, you guys. Listen, dating is not always all bad. And obviously, these are not the worst things that can happen, but they are pretty dang awkward. So I hope that you've enjoyed this spooky stories from the dating world episode of Crushing with Abio. Again, there's always something to be learned from all of these experiences. A lot of it has to do with just really speaking up for yourself, putting your boundaries and your non-negotiables in place, putting your foot down when someone is acting a fool, and just not taking shit when you don't need to. Also, maybe doing a little bit of Google researching. So anyway, I will see you next week. Happy Halloween, everyone. By the way, have you taken my personality quiz that will tell you what training and nutrition tactics styles are best for you? You can actually do that by clicking the link in the show notes. It'll take you directly to the quiz. You can fill that out and it will tell you which type out of 5 that you are. This helps give you some insight to yourself just as a person. It uses our profile of neurotransmitters to help us align our training and nutrition best with our personalities. Because if you're working with your personality instead of against it, you're going to have so much more success and ease in your health journey. So go check that out. Thank you for tuning into the Crushing with Abio podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, go ahead and subscribe or follow. And please leave a 5-star review while you're there. Share this podcast with any of your girl or guy friends that you know could use an extra laugh once a week. You can also find me on Instagram at abio.fit. That's ABBYO.fit. Talk soon.